Welcome. You're listening to a Trauma Survivor Thrivers podcast on Mental Health News Radio Network. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Lori Lee Benstock, host of a Trauma Survivor Thrivers podcast on Mental Health News Radio Network and anywhere you get your podcast. Today's guest is Rabbi Harry Rosenberg. Harry is the co-founder of Trippy.VC, whose goal is to help advance the psychedelic awakening through investing throughout the sector, as well as vertical healing programs in areas between New York, Miami, Jamaica, with a focus on a retreat center in Israel dedicated towards plant healing as a means of conflict resolution. Rabbi Harry, thank you so much for joining me.
Oh, it's an absolute pleasure and honor. I appreciate your time and having me on.
Oh my goodness. Well, we met maybe a year and a half ago at the Wonderland Psychedelic Conference, and I learned so much about you, and you are doing some incredible work in Israel. Can you talk about it? You said there's an operation underway, and I'd love to hear more about it.
I mean, the operation is more underway, thank God, than it's ever been, but this has been an operation I've personally been working on since about 2006.
Wow.
Um, so that's a lot of years of effort and dreaming and hustling, but it started off of not assuming or not thinking that the need for healing today would be as critical as it is, being that there's tens of thousands of people on waiting lists to experience alleviation of symptoms of PSD, with hundreds of thousands of people who didn't even get diagnosed yet, who would be on the same category of not properly sleeping at night or not being able to tolerate being honked at traffic or just micro things that the PTSD levels here is out of control of just so much war and conflict and intensity. But yeah, in 2006, in the middle of being in college, just partying with my friends, I had a calling and an awakening to go to Israel and get farmland. I wasn't sure why or what, but over the years, I was led towards the path of believing that there's going to be a need for sanctuary space for people to heal, a pop-up psychedelic field hospital, something, however you want to call it. I know it's the most famous thing in the world, though. Someone goes to have an ayahuasca journey or a plant medicine experience, the next thing they know, they go, "Wow, I need to open up a retreat center," because like they found gold and like, well, my neighbors and my parents don't know about this gold, so I have access to gold that no one knows about. I gotta share the gold, which is really a beautiful thing if you think about it, but it's also very common. But I had this calling to go to Israel and do it. So from about 2006 to 2012, it was just driving around Israel, looking for plots of land, going to old dying down kibbutzes or moshavs from the 1940s, 1950s with a lot of 80-year-olds living there with nothing going on. I'm like, you guys are sitting on good land, nothing's happening here, let's do something. But Israel is the size of New Jersey, or smaller, so it's very difficult to find a plot of land that someone else doesn't have their eyes on already for something else.
Mm.
But through a lot of divine providence and a lot of miracles, we can get into a later time, we found the most beautiful plot of land ever in the entire world that was supposedly located in the region where the Garden of Eden was located.
Wow.
So we have this
Wow.
like, yeah, we have this Edenic plot of land, and there was a famous suicide that happened on our land, 2000, close to 3,000 years ago by King Saul, the first king of Israel, ended his own life on this plot of land. He fell on his sword on purpose in order that he shouldn't get taken by the enemy Philistine army, who would then, pull out his eyes, rape him, torture him, and all these things. Sorry for trigger words. Um, and so instead of getting falling into the hands of his enemies, he's like, I'm falling on my sword. So I'm like, wait a minute. Not only, and we didn't know this at the time of getting this land, but not only are we in a location that is like Edenic consciousness vibes, like this is where the Garden of Eden was, but also like where the first major suicide for our people happened, and now we're dealing 3,000 years later with like massive suicide issues with soldiers and people who survived the Nova massacre and October 7th. There are people who are ending their lives because it's just too painful for them. So that's like one thing. So we have this plot of land, and about I don't know, 3, 4 years ago, after 6 years of attempting to put hippies on the land and do stuff and permaculture and here and there, which was like all low budget, shoestring attempts just to get something going, we realized we got to be serious about this and much more intentional. So we founded what you introduced me as, the founder of Trippy.VC. Got the hat over here, Trippy.VC,
Mm,
which is works like a venture capital fund, but operates like a non-for-profit. So it's got this middle ground called a DAO, a DAO, decentralized autonomous organization, which is like a group of impact investors pooling together money to do something in the for-profit realm, but not to make any money off of it. So there's no distributions going on and no payouts to investors for how we're going to figure out how to make money on the psychedelic space. It was simply a vehicle to say we need to get stuff done in the psychedelic space. We can't function like a non-for-profit legally. We need to be a for-profit to make moves. But so we found this middle ground that was beautiful, and we raised a little bit of healthy capital, and immediately we started investing in the Israel opportunity, which led us to a company called PsyRx. I'm not sure if you're familiar with them.
mm-mm.
PsyRx is an amazing company. Everyone could look them up. People could even invest. It's based in the Hebrew University laboratories, and they work with a few different universities and laboratories. And they have a legal permit from Israel to create psychedelic chemicals. Um, Historically, they were not allowed to do anything with them, but they were allowed to create them for testing. So that means they were creating out of a bioreactor, which I'll explain what that is. Um, Psilocybin, the active ingredient of the mushrooms, DMT, dimethyltryptamine, the active ingredient in ayahuasca, and ibogaine, which is
Mm,
known to be the only psychedelic plant that could really get someone off of their opiates and their heroin addiction without radical side effects. So a bioreactor means it's not a synthetic version of the chemical. They start off with an organic, natural cell or DNA or chemical from the original substance, and a bioreactor speeds up organically the half-life or the process of the chromosome splitting of the entity at a high speed. So it could take you from cell to psilocybin bypassing the mushroom phase. So they're not making actual mushrooms, but they're creating organic psilocybin, organic iboga, organic DMT, bypassing the plant phase. So they're able to do it rapidly and abundantly, which is a pretty big miracle considering plants like iboga, the iboga,
they take
experience.
years. Yeah.
Yeah, it's only
Years
found
to grow.
in one village in Africa, I think in the Gabon region of Africa, I believe if I pronounce it correct.
That's right.
And there's wars and battles over it, and there's not so much left. Yeah, and like you said, it takes years to grow, and when they do get it out there, there's a lot of black market, and are you getting the real thing? And it's like when the diamonds were involved in like people losing your hands, you're like, should we be wearing diamonds? Like this
Right.
guy's lost their ear to get me this diamond, and I'm like getting engaged with it, like it's all good. That's a bad trip. So, I think Israel now being at the forefront of trying to create this stuff to share with humanity is a great thing. I know that they, to create a new drug, you have to go through the FDA and all these things, which takes a long time. But the company we're working with, I hope we're not telling their trade secrets, but I hope other people do push these innovative ideas. They were able to figure out a way that the iboga would work when taken in small doses and combined with your antidepressant medication. So if you add an ingredient to an already existing approved FDA
That's right.
something, then you can streamline it much quicker. So I think they went very fast with some of their protocols and clinical trials. I know on like clownfish they were doing iboga clinical trials and pr were already proving incredible stuff with fish. And um, so now we're at the point where I said, all right, we got this land. We invested in a company that is creating the chemicals that we need. Currently, at the time when the story was happening, they have to burn and destroy the chemicals at the end of creation. They're legally allowed to create it, but not use it on humans. But they were working and are working on a database of like, for cannabis now You don't just smoke a strain, is it sativa or is it indica? What's
Right.
the percentage of this? What's the percentage of that? Which one is good for eating disorder? Which one's good for depression? And we figured out all these different things. They're doing the same thing with psychedelics, because the mushroom strains, there's so many different types of psychedelic mushrooms out there, etc. So which one would be good for a suicidal state? Which one's good for your friends watching a Grateful Dead, concert or something? So we saw there's a ton of data. These guys are amazing. So I said, we got the land, we got the company, and I said, now I got to be a lobbyist. So that's when I started a series of going into the Knesset, of going into the government. I put on my suit and tie, wear my trippy hat, uh, figured out who to speak to, how to get in. And next thing you know, I'm knocking on the doors of the Ministry of Health, the Ministry of Intelligence, the Ministry of Defense, and I'm saying to each one the relevant thing, for the Ministry of Defense and Intelligence. First of all, we got a super situation. Our most high-trained elite soldiers are getting traumatized, and then they're leaving Israel to go to India to take LSD to find some inner peace. And then they get disenfranchised by Israel and they don't want to come back. And then we're losing like our main intelligence to the world. And they're taking psychedelics. You got to create something in Israel that's safe and like works so people can stay here and actually heal without having to like leave the country.
Same idea in America, right? We
Oh
need to
yeah,
do
for
that.
sure. Yeah, for sure. People going to Mexico, now they're going to, other places where
Mhm.
they could do these things. Then they get disenfranchised, they don't want to go back. So the response from the government has been beyond incredible. The Ministry of Health, I saw we're not evil people conspiring to make sure we take vaccines and kill ourselves and it's a stigma, but they were actually just generally sweet, loving, family oriented people who were like, we didn't know about iboga, DMT, and psilocybin. Can you tell us more, Rabbi Harry?
Mm. Hmm.
And so it became a position where they were relying on me for certain parts to provide protocols. What's the protocol here? What's the dosage? What's the follow-up? What are we doing? And I said, it's a little bit over my pay grade. But I did reach out to a lot of professors and scientists in the field, people who've done the work, who've done the studies, people in America who've done studies with universities. And I'm like, guys, we have a code red situation where we can get something done here, but we need everyone to put their egos aside, pool together some information. Because normally someone's like, well, what's my cut? What's my share?
Right.
What's my role? So we didn't really get a lot of that. We got like, oh man, psychedelics in Israel could be a game changer for the Middle East. Um,
Hmm.
I mean, funny enough or not, I actually said to some of the heads of the Ministry of Defense and Intelligence, I said, you know what? Give me like a serious terrorist, like someone who locked up, like a serious guy who's like a real heavy terrorist. Leave him for me with a week. Let me serve him what I want to serve him. I'll send him back to a Rastafarian hippie. Like he'll come back like a hippie. I'm like, what do you mean? America did it to the Japanese and with LSD in the 19 early mid 1900s. I said, I think you'll have a lot of success, if there's someone giving them love and we watch a few documentaries on nature and history, give them some plan, you could change someone's mind very quickly. They kind of laughed at the idea. They asked me how many kids I have. I said I have 4 kids. They said, go to your family. Don't get involved. Don't get involved in this stuff. I said no, but really that would be the best idea. Um, but no, so now that we've spent months, if not more than a year already, lobbying in the government, meeting different people, submitting things, it's at the point right now where clinical trials on these chemicals on soldiers who are suicidal and or disenfranchised Arabs who hate the state will and are getting green lit. But what it does require, which is seems shady, but this is how the state of Israel functioned historically since its inception. You can't rely on the government for funding for it. So that means we have to provide the funding. They will provide the green light. Um,
Mm.
since the start of the State of Israel, private Jewish philanthropic capital was the core of helping build it up. Even though I forgot the guy's name, the mafia guy from Miami, like, a couple decades ago, he was responsible for helping Israel get off the ground. So he was running all the stuff in Miami, the gambling, the drinking, whatever, but that private money was going towards Israel. I'm sure his name will come to me soon. And so historically, the Jewish people, like you look at, these Mayor Montefiore, the windmill in Jerusalem. He built a whole city called Yamin Moshe. The city's named after him. So private money always goes in. So the Israeli government says, listen, you got this land, you got this company. Now you need to build out the eco village. You need yurts and geodomes, an outdoor kitchen, and the solar panels, the bathroom that converts the waste to energy, and you need to do it all. So I'm like, oh, great. So we got to raise millions of dollars right now to do it. And when you're raising millions of dollars, you're dealing with different type of people. You're dealing with investors who are like, where's the money? Like, where are we going to make the money? And at that point, you're already like, no, sorry, this is not for you. We can't have guys involved in something so sacred who, if the bottom line doesn't work for them the right way, they're going to restructure one day and make moves to do non-ethical things or not something for the sake of healing in order for the sake of making money. So we really try to separate that. Um, the non-for-profit world is very tricky because we're in a war. So the biggest foundations now are giving their money to soldiers' families, here, there. Psychedelics fell through in the fringes, like not the biggest priority, which it should be. So just as we speak, we're finishing a new deck now for our Trippy.VC for the DAO to send it around to try to take people by the ankles, shake them upside down, get a little change out of them, and say this is something we're doing not for me, not for you, but for the list of soldiers and survivors who just don't want to live anymore, who deserve alleviation of symptoms inside of their brain. So we have all the check marks we need. We got the chemicals, we got human clinical trials approved, we got the land. We got everything. So now, very close to execution, I would say.
Wow. Wow, that is incredible. Like that is mind-blowing that you've worked so hard and especially at such a critical time. The truth is if everyone in the world were able to heal their traumas, little t, big T traumas, I believe it could bring peace on earth. I think if each individual was able to heal their own traumas, can you imagine? Um, so my question is now like so have you done work with Palestinians as well in providing psychedelic healing and this whole idea of
Sure, I
bringing
can't
people
say what I
together?
can say and can't say what I can't say, but what I can say is there was one time there was like a secret psychedelic meetup between Jews and Palestinians. I mean, it wasn't supposed to be just, but that's what it was. Jews and Palestinians were coming to the secret psychedelic meetup. And I remember one of my friends was driving me there. And this, handful of years ago, and we're going into now a Palestinian village in the West Bank. And I'm like, okay, I hope they don't kill me, guys like me get killed around here.
Mm-hmm.
And next thing you know, we stop and some Palestinian gets in the front or gets in the car. Me being, the way I was raised, just trying to be polite, I get out of the front seat and I say, "Psh, front's yours, let me get the back." Like, that's just the courtesy move, right? When you want to show someone honor, you give them the front seat. He says to me, I cannot take the front seat because we're going to go through the checkpoint. You're going to be the guy who's going to make this look like a normal car. And I'm like, okay. It's all sprung on me. So we go through the checkpoint. The officer was around the window. What's going on? Hello, we're from New York. Carry on. What are you doing here? Keep going. They don't, we get racially profiled pretty well. But I would not be involved in something like that again or whatever. And I don't want it to be breaking the law. But at this meeting, it did come to light there have been clandestine ceremonies that have been taking place outside of Israel, meaning they got private funding to fly Palestinians and Jews from Israel to places like Spain and Portugal to sit in retreat centers and do above ground these healing medicines. And it really I've seen the results of these Palestinians and Jews who do the medicine together. And the biggest thing that I think the takeaway is, and what the medicine really does for humans, is you could see yourself in the other person.
Mm-hmm.
Once you could see the humanity in another human, you could see you in them, and you could relate to them. You could have compassion on them. So I was seeing the results of this being like an incredible equality of purpose, of reason, that one wasn't above the other, but they were on the same page to try to get to the same place. And so the results of these little ceremonies that have been going on already for 5, 6 years, could be more, are astounding. The results are astounding of just the compassion and humanity that comes out of it. It's
Oh
not
gosh,
about
that's
who's right or who's wrong or whose God is right or who did the most damage to which side. It's about like we have a solution to the wall that is standing between my people and your people, and it's nothing farther than a plant. So what are we doing about this?
right, right. The Middle East, more specifically Israel and Gaza, they've been at war for hundreds of years, and you know, healing, I feel like, would take drastic measures. And while it doesn't seem drastic for us, like you said, it's just a plant, right? It's just a plant. But I think, for others, they think, oh, this is something drastic. And I would say, like, if there was any answer, psychedelics could be that answer. Um, Once everything is approved, do you feel that, I know you're talking about IDF soldiers, but are you thinking maybe creating more space for Palestinians and Israelis to come together and do these ceremonies together?
Yeah, I do. I think there's still a level of danger involved.
Hmm.
Um, I mean, there's a few different things going on at once. One is that the Jewish people have been, because we write everything down every, 20 or 30 years, we like create a blockchain of like what happened this generation, what's going on. Since the founding of Islam, the Jewish people have just been massacred and tortured every couple dozen years or so. There's pogroms, and it's very brutal, and it's like a real history of trauma. Far and few you don't see in the history books Jewish people attacking people who are Islamic so they could become Jewish. So it doesn't happen. I have nothing against the good people of the Islamic religion. There's a lot of good people, and I meet them, and they're amazing. But this is an underlying theme over here. But when you do look in Israel today, the crazy thing is that the majority of the stabbing attacks, not the rockets coming from Gaza or Lebanon, but the stabbing attacks where they come and just stab people, are coming from individuals who we can trace their family back to families that were once Jewish, who went through forced conversions to Islam. So that means that 25%, and this is not my data, this was from Ben Zvi, one of the first prime ministers of Israel, and the researcher Tzvi Messinai, whose work is on YouTube. You could see the interviews. They've proven that conservatively, 25% of the Palestinians in Israel have Jewish roots and Jewish blood who went through forced conversions to Islam under terrifying sword and rape and taxes. So the people who are stabbing the Jews aren't even real Islamic Muslims, but people who were once Jewish. So we asked the question, we're like, what in the heck is going on over here? How is this the case? Um, I'll just name like a famous one, even though the murderer of Ari Fold, Hillel Fold's brother, was like a famous situation because Ari Fold was a massive, impactful guy, and Hillel's the most influential blogger, tech guy in all of Israel. And when the second he died, I was like, 1 second over here. Let me just see the article. See the article. It says the killer's name, last name was Mahmoura from the village of Yatta. I'm like, great. I go to the database of family names and clans who were once Jewish in Israel who converted to Islam. Mahmoura is on the database. The last name means winemaker, which obviously no wine since the time of Muhammad was haram, forbidden. So if someone is a Palestinian and his last name means winemaker, he was not from an original Islamic Muslim family. He was from the Jewish families who the Tanakh, the Bible says, when the exile happened for the Jewish people, the only families that were allowed to remain in the land were the winemakers, were the people who knew how to till the vineyards, because the new rulers who came in needed their wine, and they didn't, they don't know the soil and the land. So you have these families who've been here since ancient times, and if you look at the village that his killer came from, Yatta, Yatta, someone just has to go on Wikipedia and look at the history of the village of Yatta. It's a historical Jewish village from 2,000 years ago, and only until recently it became a Muslim Islamic village. And if you go to that village, as Tzvi Messinai, the guy on YouTube did with his camera, you'll see under their floorboards they have religious Judaic items from the 1400s. They have places in their doorposts where mezuzahs would be placed that were covered over, Jewish stars that were turned into different shaped stars. So it's like the whole entire village was once Jewish, but the whole entire village now has an obsession with stabbing Jews. Why? Because just like the Jews of Spain had a derogatory term used against them when they were like hidden Jews and like had to outwardly look Christian to survive, the term was called a Marrano, which is like a pig. It's a very derogatory term, but that was the term used for them. Now we use the word converso or anusim, more friendly words, but a Marrano was a derogatory term used for a Jew who had to pretend to be an Arab. So the Arabs today who know that these villages were once Jewish call them Musta Arabim, meaning like you're hidden Arabs, you're like false Arabs. You're not a real pure blood Arab. And when the state of Israel was founded and this came to light that they had Jewish roots, they weren't accepted as Jews. They were considered still Palestinian others. And
Mm.
so you see these are individuals without an identity. They're not accepted here, they're not accepted there. So you see how radical they go to become like, look, I am loyal to the Prophet Muhammad. I'm more loyal than you. I'm stabbing Jews. Like, I'm all in. Like, I have an identity, So it's like a psychological battle. But what we do know about psychedelics is they trigger epigenetics, genetic memories, perhaps from your ancestors
Mm-hmm.
that are stored in
Mm-hmm.
your DNA. I personally believe that's what happened to me. I grew up not observing Shabbat, not eating kosher, Roy Rogers, McDonald's, chicken nuggets, French fries, just a regular American. And the next thing you know, after some plant medicine in college, you're like, wait a minute. Oh, I got to go back to Israel and study Torah and get involved with what my great ancestors, these rabbis, were doing, and boom, and then you don't have an option, So my beard is all tucked in here, and it all pulls out down to my knee. And since that day I had that awakening, I'm all in. So I'm like, well, if my epigenetic ancestral rabbinical memory was awakened on a trip, and 17, 18 years ago, and I'm still like, it's still vibrating very strongly in me. I bet you we could wake up some of these people's Jewish ancestors and have them realized, wow, my great great grandmother could have been raped, so I'm doing what I'm doing today. Like, I'm only in it because of her fear. That's a trip.
Mm.
But your ego is too strong for you to realize it without the plant medicine, and then it wakes it up inside you. So I think before we start seeing like hippy dippy Jewish Palestinian circles coming together, let's just do some like solo circles. Like you guys do some Palestinian circles, we'll do some Jewish circles. And then like we'll slowly start to heal our own selves, our own traumas, and like to be healed enough to come together without being afraid that mid-circle this guy could take out a knife and stab me. Like that's a little bit of a fear still. So
Right,
like we
right.
know it'll work, but we don't have to force the co-circles yet. But there needs to be accessible plant medicine for these Palestinians. I think in Israel's security and the best interests of the state, it would make sense to me, but we're also dealing with a military state who functions like as a police state, rightfully so, because just a ton of people want to kill a lot of other people. So it's a little bit unknown how this is all going to unfold, but what I would suggest is like when we do have circles in the future, these legal circles in the land of Palestinians and Jews, we should train Palestinian shamans, like bring in great healers from South America and from Russia and from the Siberia, places where they've been doing this medicine for thousands of years, and train some people who we know have what to lose, some Palestinian leaders with family, and they've shown history with this, and they've spoken out that we could trust. Yeah, have them prepared to serve the medicine to their guys. And I hope one day my land, we can come together and host these dual joint circles.
Wow. Is there, do you know of any imams or anyone who would work with you in the future when this is like I do understand like this whole idea of, doing your individuals and your own cohorts, but um do you see the future? Do you see how it can play out?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a few different like I think about it, and it's a lot of it's speculation, but there is, if you look up psychedelics in Iran, it was like the former supreme leader did say that psychedelic plants are not haram, they're not forbidden. That we see with the Prophet Muhammad, that's what they call him, the Prophet Muhammad. that there was harmala seeds, I believe, which are like MAO inhibitors. When mixed with certain things, you could have a psychedelic experience. And they were like, yeah, these experiences are like basically in our religion, so it's allowed. If you look at all the mosques in Iran, each one's like a big fat DMT trip, like the color and the patterns and everything. It's like, where did you see that first? That looked like something you'd see in a trip that now you're replicating in a mosque. But in Israel, there are Palestinians. I wouldn't know any imams offhand who are ready for this, but there's a list of Palestinians who've been preparing and training for this role. Um,
Mm-hmm.
that I have met some of them, which are awesome. And also there's guys out there from from Afghanistan who were born into very powerful Islamic families, but have since taken the plants and toned it down a little to become more humanitarian, more global. Like for example, Shaman Omar Ahmadzai. He's on Instagram. He's a famous healer. He travels all around the world to heal celebrities and stuff, but he's from Afghanistan, so he's very close with the Jewish people. But he's also has the bloodline to rule over Afghanistan. His cousins are the rulers of Afghanistan. So like a guy like him would be like, boom, let's tap him to come sit with the Palestinians. They're not gonna stab him because he's from Afghan royalty. His cousins oversee Afghanistan today. So, but this is all in my brain speculating of like who's gonna get tapped in its right time. Part of the whole thing is like removing myself and my ego from it, like thinking that I have like something to give without like the universe giving it to me to give. So at the right place in the right time, I believe the universe will make clear, like God or whatever you want to call it, will make clear what the next steps are. So otherwise, you can get what's called paralysis by analysis. Like you have so many ideas, you don't know what it is, so you don't do anything. You get lost and you get stuck. So I'm just like, this is not my mission. This is an ancient mission. This is not even something I want. I think that the mushroom spores want it more than me. So if that's
Mm-hmm.
what you guys want and you want it, God, you want, you do it all. I'll just be like a vehicle, a vessel you could use me to do it through. So I don't even have my own wants or my own will over here. I'm just like, what is supposed to happen? Let it happen, please. This way, I free myself from worry and stress and anxiety and all these things that could plague people when they overthink, when they feel like they have too much control over a situation. So I just let go. I'm seeing what's going on. It's fascinating to watch, like a Netflix episode.
Wow, wow. Well, what is your hope now moving forward, based on where you are, what you've how far you've come, what's next?
My hope is like got pretty amplified also with I know this may seem controversial because people don't like him, but Donald Trump, being elected to president, I see the good in things in general in life. So I'm not looking at his personality or what other people may be upset about him or not. I'm just like, did he tap this guy RFK who's talking about getting rid of the fluoride in the water and like legalizing psychedelics? So the first step I would like to do just in general is between America and Israel to get some specific laws changed on the clergy. Meaning, I published a publication on the intersection of psychedelics and the Torah. If anyone Googles those two words, psychedelics and Torah, the publication comes up first. It's free. You could read it on the Safaria app, and it's also on YouTube. You can listen to it. But I believe that historically, that the priests of Israel and the greatest sages and rabbis of Israel, who we know used to smoke pipes to do mystical, elevated missions, as far as even a few hundred years ago, I think that the clergy should have legal access and rights to serve plant medicine without the law on their back. So if you look at like the Native American churches who are legally doing ayahuasca in
Mhm.
America, get why? Because that's their religious right. So I'm like, how is this not our religious right if the service of the high priest of Israel on Yom Kippur was inhalation of plants and chemicals that may or may not, well, they did contain dimethyltryptamine, DMT, the coals from the acacia tree. So I'm like, this is our religion, this is our narrative. We got to take it back. So I'm working very hard on now being like, like a undercover cop as like his badge. I want to be an undercover psychedelic rabbi where I could be like, boom, I'm certified to blast you off with some DMT right now. You're feeling suicidal, no problem. I'm legally allowed and trained and certified for this. So like, I would like to get that status upon myself and upon other clergy that they could train and do it. Um, that. And
Wow.
then, the next steps for us is trying to raise a couple $1 million in the next quarter, and start building out yurts and geodomes and announcing public ceremonies for everyone suffering. So, like, I'm very tunnel visioned on that. I also have an online course I'm launching on this topic so people can learn about what did I just say about Yom Kippur and pipes and rabbis? Like, what did you just say? Like, yeah, there's a lot to learn over there. So, I'm trying to put it into an online course. And outside of that, I'm just trying to stay humble and grateful. It's a very hard time to be alive today, to have good mental health and to stay positive, not get affected by all the negativity and the suffering around us. So every single day, I'm actively just working on keeping my mind positive.
No, amazing. And I just love your energy. Just meeting you in person was such a wonderful experience, and I do appreciate you coming on and talking to me today.
No, no problem. It's incredible. I mean, we're seeing unprecedented things. I don't know what's going to be the next time we speak and the follow-up and all the updates, but Israel today is considered the largest psychedelic nation in the world per capita, meaning on ratio of people here versus people how many they're taking, it's the most psychedelic place in the entire world. Um,
Wow.
I know there's a lot of, unfortunate things, with war and military and toughness. But you have to understand the people who established the state had their houses and their paintings and their bank accounts stolen from them in other countries that they came from. So they're not taking any BS from anyone. They came here. You want to talk about stabbing us in it? No games anymore. So like we had to experience like a few decades of like real total chaos and violence just for the Jewish people to put down their feet. But the war model that worked for us in the past, I don't believe is serving us anymore. Like we need to switch our weapons from rockets to pipes and mushrooms.
I
Um,
love that.
so, so like I get a lot of love when I speak like this to the Jewish people. It makes sense to them. They would love to switch out of being like involved in for-profit war machine games and stuff, which gives Israel like a very not good look. But at the end of the day, like what happened had to have happened. I mean, people call out the Rothschild family and like, well, you owned the banks that were financing wars the last 300, 400 years, manipulating the markets and everything, and then you take that money and buy Israel and buy an army. They're like, you're shady. I'm like, well, you know what they were doing in Europe in the first place? Like, how did we get there? They're like, what do you mean? I'm like, well, we were doing some hippie stuff 2,000 years ago in the Holy Temple of Jerusalem with incense and plants and parties and barbecues 3 times a year, like crazy music festival. You wouldn't believe it. And the Roman Empire just said, no, that's not going to happen. So they came, they destroyed our temple, they sold us as slaves into Europe. We were tortured and killed and kidnapped, and all of our possessions taken from us. And it took us about, I don't know, 1600, 1700 years till we owned a few banks where we used our smarts to manipulate your system to get our land back. So it's like, don't steal people from their land anymore and expect them to just to play ball like that. Like that's a karmic thing that you had coming. But now that we dealt with that, like, yeah, we do got to leave the war model, and the only way to really get out of there is the plants, which you look at 1969 in like America, they started giving people these psychedelic plants to tune in, tap out, whatever it was. And all of a sudden people were like, why are we going to war? We're not going to war. Whose war are we fighting? And once people start talking like that, a government's like, those are not questions we need to deal with. We need to go to war to survive. That's our business model. So I believe Israel with their technology, their innovation, the startup nation, this, we just don't need war anymore. Let's get out of it with some love. But it's high hopes.
I hope so. Well, here's to more miracles for you.
Amen. Amen. I appreciate it. So yeah, so that's like the rundown of where we're holding. I hope really to have amazing updates soon. And if anyone's listening to this and wants to check out our packet and to consider partnering with us, I'm happy to entertain.
Awesome. Is there a website that people can go to, or you're creating that now?
No, we do have a website, but it's trippy.vc.
Mm-hmm.
Not too much information, just like our roadmap, our vision, like how we're structured, like just general information. But they could always reach out to me at my email, which is rabbi@trippy.vc. So you can shoot me an email. I respond to everyone. I'm also giving lectures every day on YouTube just for mental health and wellness that people could tap into, like 5 to 7 minute little micro hits once a day. And I'm just happy to be here to help, if anything I could do to help.
Awesome. And I'll find your YouTube and I'll make sure that's all in the show notes as well.
Awesome. Yeah, you search Harry Rosenberg on YouTube, you can put the link. And right now I'm giving the lectures of a rabbi called the Yanuka. I don't know if you've heard of him or people are familiar, but the Yanuka is probably the greatest thing to happen to our people in hundreds and hundreds of years. Every multi hundreds of years, maybe every 200 to 300 years, we're gifted a prodigy sage, someone who is not normal, who already by the age of 9 and 10 mastered the whole Torah and is giving lectures to older individuals on the secrets of the Torah. Someone who's born with an absolute gift. So today we have a young rabbi, they call him the Yanuka, which is like an ancient name used 2,000 years ago for a child prodigy. And like I said, at the age of 9 and 10, he was being chased around his neighborhood by followers trying to listen to him give teachings. He wrote already, he's now 36 or so. He wrote over 100 publications on the secrets of the Torah. His mastery of the Torah is unprecedented for, hundreds and hundreds of years before him, perhaps. And he's already been caught and seen, including myself, doing open miracles, manipulating the physical reality in front of people's eyes, like something totally not normal. You could look it up online. Like a lot of Christians are very scared that he was the Antichrist. So there's videos on YouTube with hundreds of thousands of views, like people terrified of this young rabbi. But I got very close to them and I met him, and I'm just speechless. It's like we have a ball of light, like godly Moses light, right in front of us. And so he wrote down a book to get to the tree of life, like how to achieve inner peace. And like, so it's only in Hebrew. So I go through that book every single day on YouTube because, like, just like mushrooms heal, good information also heals. So I'm like,
Hmm.
he's got the best information in the world. Like he's hitting direct points of life hacks on how to like change your karma, light up your face, get this, like just simple life hacks that are practical to be like a high vibrational human being. So if anyone's interested in like not taking psychedelics but still healing, I'd recommend
Mm.
the series.
Ah, amazing. And I'll put all that into the show notes. So
Yeah,
thank you
you're
so much.
amazing also. You're an awesome healer. When I did speak to you, you gave me some great advice on things that I was dealing with in my own community that people come to me with questions that I necessarily couldn't relate to, but what you've gone through and your story, like you're also a great light, and should be very fortunate and grateful to have you here with us.
Oh, and thank you so much. That I appreciate that very much.
Very good.
All right. Well, that was Rabbi Harry Rosenberg, co-founder of Trippy.VC, whose goal is to help advance the psychedelic awakening. For more information, you can check out the show notes. I'll have all of that information as YouTube. And you can also go to Authentic Insider Magazine. The latest issue is out. That's traumasurvivorthriver.com. That's where you can find it. And you can find past episodes of Trauma Survivor Thrivers podcast there. If you haven't already, please join the email list to get Authentic Insider Magazine in your inbox monthly. You've been listening to a Trauma Survivor Thrivers podcast on Mental Health News Radio Network. I'm Lori Lee Binstock. Thank you so much for being a part of the conversation. Take care.